Well, hello, and we will start off this video with a little plan. As you can see, we are going to be assembling the decks, all the superstructures as well as the wood grain that goes onto the decks themselves. Here I'm just showing you the plan of how the things are going together because I'm not going to be able to show every single thing in this video. It's already far too long, just telling you. So let's get going. The first thing we have to do is, of course, the usual. I painted the decks with black. Now the reason that I'm doing this is because I want to have a little bit of a contrast between the deck and the planks. The Flyhawk modification asks us to remove the mesh from the decking, so that's what I'm doing with a very sharp chisel blade on my X-Acto knife from Tamiya. And it's a very sharp flat edge that allows you to basically slice into the plastic and make a clean cut, just like you can see right here. And I've done this for the both sides. Yeah. Now the next thing is, of course, applying wood glue and the deck themselves, which you've already seen this before. So wood glue on the bottom and then the deck on top. The reason that I'm doing this method is because I want to make sure that the decks stick onto the plastic for years to come, and I don't want them to come off down the line like a year or 2 years after. Note, since this project has been in the works for such a long time, the decks that I've placed on previously are still holding up pretty well, so this method works. When the decks were glued in place and dry, I applied semi-gloss varnish with a brush so that the dust doesn't stick to the decks that much. Here in the background you can already see the wall pieces that I've cut out from the sprues and sanded them down. They have nice detail on them, although some are better than others. Here you can see the ejector pin marks that I have to clean, but you know, other than that, they're pretty solid. Now from the instructions you can see clearly which sort of frames are supposed to go on which certain panel. Now here you have them classified F16, F6 on top. See, you can clearly see them up here. That's the upper deck. That's actually the deck above the one that I'm actually building. This one is again the top deck. This is not boat deck. This is deck below the boat deck. But here I think this is the piece of the deck that I'm actually building myself. So this would be, this particular window is supposed to be this little piece, as well as this little window on the corner here. So, okay. And we can still clearly see that the photo etch window frames extend into the hull of the ship, so towards the bow. My God, I really have to take a look at this very closely before I actually go and butcher some of these parts. But yeah, the instructions are not really very clear. Oh, here we have the dining room. Okay, so this is the piece that I'm looking for. So yeah, see, this piece is this one here, F11, F12, F11. Oh, okay. Yeah. And here is a boat deck. Okay, there's a one missing, and this is the deck above. So yeah, clearly there's a lot of these frames that need to go on, but I have to figure everything out, and I have to, if nothing else, I have to count them. The problem that I have is here on this picture where they're showing there's supposed to be a ladder here and a ladder there, which is fun, which is really funny because I don't know whether I should remove the ladder that's already here on the piece. Look, if you take a look at, you see that there's a ladder here, or do I have to put a photo etch ladder that's there? But this is kind of confusing. Yeah, but here you can see again there's a window frame, a window, but here on the front of the ship there are no frames inside here. You see, there's no frames, and on top, I don't know. This is, the instructions on the Flyhawk set are truly really crap. Yeah, there's basically what I have to say about that. So I'm gonna try to figure this one out. And as I'm pondering that question, I'm assembling the superstructure of the Titanic, the walls. I have to assemble some small pieces, and join them together in a cohesive structure, then test fit them onto the decks to see if I have any issues prior to putting the frames on, because I don't want to do that later. It's just going to complicate things. It's already a very complicated project. But this part of the build was pretty simple, a little bit fiddly, but not that difficult. Okay, so there's one little hiccup that I just found as I was test fitting and trying to see how this deck goes on top of the hull. The back end of the ship and the front end of the ship. And you can see that there are two holes here, front, and two holes here on the back. These holes are meant to line up with the holes on this deck. So this is the first deck. On the bottom we have two pins, right? Two here and two in the front. Now two in the front on my ship go together really smoothly. So I can show you here. So this is the front. We line up the holes, slots in place, fantastic. Here on the back, however, it's not that rosy. Why? Let me show you. So these are the holes. This is the deck with the pins. If I try to line them up, this is what happens. So I have to be really careful not to screw the deck up. So, but see, I line the hole here, but it mismatches on the other. And if I line this one, it mismatches on the other. So that's a bit of a problem. What I have to do now is either remove the pin and just go with one, or make the holes bigger, which is exactly what I'm gonna do. Because I still want to have some sort of alignment. Because this, I think, is too far to the right and this is too far to the left. Somewhere in the middle is just right. So I'm gonna enlarge these two holes and try to make it fit. Alright, so we've been assembling the bridge deck. This is the front of the bridge deck and the elements that go in it. And this is, let's see, the back. And this is the back of the bridge deck and all the elements that go in it. Altogether, not that difficult, to be honest. Pretty simple, actually. You do need to be mindful of a couple of things. First of all, there's two holes on either side here that need to be drilled out, and you cover them with the decks once you put the deck on. So you can see the hole on the bottom. See right here on the very corners. So you need to drill it out because that's where the wires go. And also there are a couple of elements here that are permanently fixed to the structure, such as this little piece here that goes from the second class smoke room to the dining room or restaurant. And these dividing walls, these two dividing walls, which really serve no purpose than just to probably aesthetically divide the Titanic's hull. This is a piece that is made up out of 1, 2, 3, 5 pieces, which you have to glue this together and kind of place on top here. And you have to assemble this causeway stairway here as well. And of course, these two entrances for the first class passengers as well. One on either side goes like this. Nothing is glued down permanently yet because I have to finish things. One of which would be to tidy up the edges. So as you can see, this is the entrance, and you can see it's kind of messy and the way it went together. So you have to kind of put some putty in it and make it smooth and nice and pretty, because this is going to be seen from the back of the ship, and also this piece here and on the side also need to get some love and attention. You also need to enlarge some of the alignment holes on the bottom in the deck, because either the holes are too small or the pins are too big. So I just removed a little bit from the pins. It's easier that way. Also, you might have noticed that we have a black edge going all around, which is not very ideal because it's not supposed to be black, it's supposed to be wood grain. So I'm probably gonna mask it off a little bit and then just spray paint it with deck colors and then place the structures on top of it so that it won't look that crazy. Other than that, really, this deck is probably complete. So let me just wait until this dries and then we're moving on to the next step. As I was attaching the window frames to this piece, I noticed a problem.
Once I assembled it, I noticed that the windows were off. So the front and the back didn't line up. So these ones are sitting lower than the front ones. And also on the right side, it was okay. But on the left side, they were much lower. That's why you have this little extra windows that I covered up with some styrene and had to cut new ones in. That wasn't fun. And also I made the openings for the window frames much too bigger, so I had to be really careful how to place the frames, the metal frames inside. And unfortunately here, it kind of sunk into the plastic too much and it looks pretty much very flush.
Believe it or not, this was the first actual piece to which I've attached the window frames, and it was a test piece. A test in a sense that I've tried to see what works and what doesn't, and it turned out okay-ish, but I have to do better next time. After some brainstorming and a bunch of sleep, I figured out how to attach all the window frames. Now, I was still experimenting with them, so I did use different techniques to clear out the holes and attaching them to the structure. I used super glue, I used cement, I used wood glue. I mean, there were different types of things that I wanted to try out to see what works best and what doesn't. And I will show you all those results. Now, the window frames were really a challenge because there's just so many of them. And all in all, it took me around 16 hours to do them all. And that means a lot of Saturdays and Sundays spent in just window frames and window frames and window frames. I really got sick and tired of window frames. Just be aware that you'll need a lot of time to do this properly.
So these are all the window frames that come with the Flyhawk set, the sprue number F. And I've already used a bunch of these smaller windows. I still have a couple of left, but I don't really know where these actually go because it's not clear where to put them, right? So the plan here is to actually
use the ones that I know where they go and then see what I'm left with, and then basically just kind of wing it. I'll use them where I think they're supposed to go and on the visible side of the ship, not the parts that are hidden inside the ship.
Now the thing is, with the kit you already have window frames on the sides of the walls, and they're not that bad, apart from, you know, the bigger ones which look like prison cell type of windows, and these look much more elegant. The other thing is, at this scale you won't be able to see a lot of the windows anyway, so you know you have to take this into account when you're building this. Now the other thing that I don't like about this sort of procedure is the fact that they have the filler inside. So you see they have little squares cut out, and these window frames are far more elegant. So if I put just a window frame on top of it, that little frame is going to be shown through, and that's not going to look very well. So I need to remove all these inner frames in order to make the whole appearance look much more authentic. However, that presents a little bit of a challenge, because if you make the opening too big, the frame is going to fall through the window. I have to attach all the frames on all the structures on the decks to see what I'm going to be left with, and then I'm going to come back. Now the way that I've been attaching the window frames is with two techniques, if you could say that. This one was attached using very thin super glue. Works fine, it sticks very well, and it's okay. but you don't have a lot of playtime with it. If you make a mistake, it's really difficult to remove it without bending the frame and making a mess. Here, this window frames and all the rest of the frames were attached using this. Yeah, I know. That's a cement, and cement doesn't work on a photo etch, and it's true. It's true. I was experimenting, to be honest, but the reason that I wanted to do this is because the cement melts the plastic on the bottom, and thus making it all mushy. And the thinking behind it was these frames are actually going to be pretty solid. You're not going to be able to touch them or force them or poke them with anything. So I was thinking that if the plastic melts enough, it will eat into the frame and hold it permanently in place. And so far, it's been working really well. And you have enough time to maneuver all the frames into position without actually worrying about, am I gonna bend the frame, because the cement cures slower than the CA glue. So yeah, it's been working really well for me. I'm not sure I'm gonna do the same thing for the bigger windows, because here you really need to be quick and efficient, but on the smaller ones, yeah, sure, no problem, why not? So I'm gonna be doing the same tactic here. Okay, so the bulkhead on the front of the ship. These are supposed to be windows, not some sort of covers for the windows, and they're supposed to be inverted. So I'll show you in the picture and up in the corner. They are supposed to be, well, windows, but with very narrow slits for viewing outside. So what we are gonna do is we'll naturally drill these things out and make them windows and put some clear styrene on the back to simulate windows. As far as the slits go, I really cannot do anything about those, so we'll just leave them round. So that's what we're gonna do now.
I think that this process is pretty self-explanatory. However, there's one thing about this piece that is gonna give you a bit of a headache, and that is that it's not uniform. So the left and right side angles of this piece are not the same, and that means that they don't cover with the inside of the ship's hull very well. Now, unfortunately, I don't have the full coverage of me fixing this issue, because for one reason or the other I did not record it, which is frustrating because I really want to show it, so I'll just have to tell you about it. But for now, I'm just drilling out the holes, sanding it smooth, and clearing out the fence on top with pliers. And here is the problem. See, on the left side, it's pretty flush with the deck and with the inside of the Titanic's hull, but on the right, there's a bit of a gap, and that is not good because you can see right through it and it's not supposed to be there. Essentially what I've done is I attached a piece of styrene on one side, glued it in place, and then sanded it smooth and cut it into the appropriate hull shape so that it has the correct fit. These two round holes are supposed to be doors. I found that these curved blades are the best tools to remove photo etch pieces from their sprue beds, because the round shape of the blade is much more precise than a straight one. You can see we're cutting, and that is really important.
Okay, so I have just done F14 window on the A deck of the sidewall. It's here. It turned out pretty okay. I made the hole a little bit too big, so that's why there you have, I'll show you closer, two side pieces of styrene on either side of the window frame to cover up the hole. I think it's gonna be fine. It's not gonna be noticeable because this is still gonna be covered from the side wall. But yeah, you can fix up things like this with some pieces of styrene. So now I have to do the rest of the windows. You can see the authors cut the whole section out, and I don't want to do that. So measure twice and cut once. Yeah. So let's do this. When creating an opening for this window, you have to be pretty aggressive with the upper opening, the arch area, because when you place the window frame over it, you see that if you didn't do that, it will cover the window. See, right here on top, and that's why you have to make an opening. Now, I made a little bit of butchery of this opening, but it doesn't matter because it's still not too wide so that it would conflict with the width of the window frame. So that's good, but just make note that you have to make a bigger arch on top. All right, so this is quite a transformation, isn't it? But it's a very time-consuming process. 2 hours of work for one piece of styrene wall. They're not pretty from the backside, they look pretty crappy. But from the front where you'll be watching the whole thing, they look decent. You do need to reinforce all these photo etch pieces with CA glue. Otherwise they will fall off. I just attached them using cement to mock fit them, you know, to fit them in place. And you'll need to be mindful of the side windows here. These are a little bit different, and the opening is naturally bigger than the window frame, so you'll need to fill in the gap using some CA glue. And well, yeah, now it's on to the rest.
These doors look a way off. On the instructions, they look much more grandiose. Look at that, F10. They have nice frames. So in order to do this, we have to use some persuading techniques using my Dremel and some snippers. Much better, don't you agree?
And the instructions are calling for 2 more window frames here and here, like this, right? If I align the window frame to the existing window frame, you can see that it's just a slightly bigger. You see? Now, I don't know. I don't want to remove. I don't want to make the hole bigger than it is. So I think I'm just gonna remove the inner pillar, this little white piece of plastic, and then just glue the thing on top. I'm not even gonna bother removing the detail because it has a little bit of a detail of a lip here, right? See, it has detail. I don't want to remove this because I'm afraid I'm gonna destroy this as well. And I don't want to do that, so I'm just gonna be lazy and do it the lazy way.
Et voila, the lazy way finished. It is not bad at all, and it will not be noticeable.
So the next set of windows that we need to do is this set, and this set is actually going to be seen from the outside because this is all open, and I'm gonna have to do it and place every single window here. It's really daunting because there's a lot of windows on the upper decks, and I'm thinking that maybe I should put the windows like here on top where you can see them actually, but where you can't see them, like on the lower decks, like on here, on the sides, I don't think you should bother, because if you look at this row here, right, You can see all the windows up front.
Let's say you're moving throughout the ship through the corridor of the A deck. On one side you have the outer wall, and on the other side you have the inner wall. On the inner wall there are the window frames. Those window frames are supposed to be there. They are included in the Flyhawk set, but they're not really visible because of the scale of the ship. You really would need to be nitpicking and looking really closely to those window openings on the outside to see those frames. Besides, the Flyhawk expansion set doesn't give you all the window frame.
Okay, one thing that I've noticed here, see how it says F19? This is not actually F19, but it is actually row 1, and below row 1 there's these little window frames, and they're not really marked. I don't know what Flyhawk was doing, but again, this is one of those little quirks that you have to be mindful of.
One more thing about these little window frames. These window frames are supposed to poke out on the boat deck. So you need to enlarge the holes quite a bit to accommodate the thickness of the deck and also the thickness of the wood grain deck that will go on top of it. So really pay close attention, and it would be optimal if the wooden deck would be attached on the boat deck prior of me fitting these window frames on, because I did make a little mistake and the holes were a little bit smaller, so on the end result you can't see them that well. Let's quickly talk about window frames for a second before we move on. In the Flyhawk expansion set, you get a number of frames and these. So we have a frame and another frame. These are the actual frames that you're going to be attaching to the ship's sidewalls. And this is a frame that is, I don't know what. In the instructions, they say that this is supposed to be some sort of a mask for you to cut the plastic into the correct shape so that this fits snugly inside. But I'm sorry, I don't know how you're supposed to use this, and there's no explanation on how to do that. So just use them, I don't know for what, maybe for masking if you're going to be painting them afterwards, because they do fit snugly on top of this. You know, this is laser cut. The problem with this is that on page 3 you can see many pictures, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 pictures of where certain frames are supposed to be. But that's not all. That's not all the windows. So you're left with a lot of frames on the screw that you'll need to figure out where they go. I think that these that are shown here are just the tip of the iceberg. Probably half. And there's also another problem, and you can see it right in these two first pictures. See, these windows and these windows are placed on top of the existing ones. As for these two windows, they're shown that the inner parts of the original windows are cut out and the frames are pasted over them, which gives you a lot of questions. Why is that so? I think that even the people who are making these didn't really know how to put them on. They just made them. Here as well, on this picture, see, these windows are pasted on top of the original ones, but the original framework is removed. And here, these window frames are far larger than the openings, and you can see that there's a plastic there's just a little bit of plastic lip on the bottom. And again, it's not great. Here, we have another example where you had to remove the inner frames from the walls of the ship. And here, they're just pasted over. It's just not great. So I've attached the majority of the window frames that come with the Flyhawk set, and this is how it turned out. It's not great, and this is the first time that I'm not actually happy with this thing, because I was attaching them onto the plastic, then painting everything with primer and then white, and then I went over with the brush to outline the frames, and it's just not great. If I had the ability to redo this, I would probably do it the way that I'm gonna tell you how to do it. So if I were to attempt this build again, this is how I would actually do it, and that I think would be the better solution. Take all the individual walls, cut out the original window frames, make the window frames that you're cutting out a little bit smaller than the actual frames that go on top of them, and then assemble the whole structure, right? All these walls, these individual sections are kind of puzzle pieces that make up the whole structure, superstructure, right? Assemble it, but don't attach it to the base, onto the deck. Make sure to reinforce the male and female sockets, like here, here, and on the front with some super glue. Wait till it dries completely, and then prime the whole thing. Paint it with white, and then, and only then, attach the window frames. Before you attach the window frames, you should paint the window frames in the color that you want, just like here. Protect it with semi-gloss varnish, cut them out, and put them onto the ship. It's gonna look 1,000 times better, and you're probably gonna have far less problems than I did. Because the way that I was doing it was, I cut the holes out, put the frames in, and then just proceeded to paint everything with primer, with white, and then individually paint the window frame. And that it's not good. It's just, fortunately for me, that there's a little sidewall, a faceplate that goes on top, so a lot of these things are not going to be seen, and I'm gonna be happy a little bit more. So yeah, if you're gonna do it like I just told you, I think you're gonna have a better chance at making these things look good. And I'm gonna do this exact thing on the very top deck where the window frames are actually gonna be seen. Because the Flyhawk expansion set doesn't give you a proper explanation where each window frame is supposed to be, I'm gonna show you where I placed my windows so that you are gonna have a better understanding. This is the bridge deck. We're going to be taking a look at the original plans, the bridge deck, the front. This is the front of the bridge deck. I didn't use any of them. There are just no frames that fit these holes, unfortunately. Then you have the very small windows here. These go here. On the other side as well. Then you have the bridge deck. The bridge deck rear section. It's this. These are the frames. Here you will have to enlarge the hole of the original windows in order to fit these. This is the very back. And on the side. These are the easiest probably. Then we have A deck. Then we go to the A deck. This is the A deck, step 17. I haven't attached these, but these are the window frames that go on front. So this is the sidewall. These are empty because I'm probably gonna fit these here. Number 10. These are checkered ones. And they do seem to indicate that they're supposed to be here, but the instructions don't show you. But I'm not gonna be attaching all the window frames here, just on these first ones, because these are not gonna be seen. And if I'm gonna be left with some frames, I'm gonna attach them here. Then we move along to the side. See, these are the ones that you have to put here, all along the side. These are the trickiest, because these openings on the original wall is really narrow, and I'm at two minds if you're supposed to even make this hole larger. I believe you're just supposed to just place them on, leave yourself the trouble and trying to make this whole opening bigger. Just place them on top. These are the trickiest ones. Here on the front, again, make these higher, put these higher than they're supposed to be from the kit. Just drill a bigger hole, push it up. And here you have to cut out the doors to fit the frames. And on the other side as well. So, yeah. Sadly, we have to have a little cut of the video right here, because this is a section for the 5th installment of the build video of the Titanic. So thank you so very much for watching if you haven't. Thank you for liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing. And thank you very much for your patience and support. It means a lot. Have a good one, and I'll see you soon in the next one. Bye bye.